My perspective when it comes to taking care of our skin as we get older is that food just becomes more and more important, because if we don't nail that food part, then what can easily happen is that we just become a slave to the skincare industry and all of the miracle products that they just keep throwing at us. So my perspective and my preference is I do not want to spend my time hopping from one product to another. Plus, the truth of the matter is, your skin gets its nourishment from the blood that is flowing through your body, right? So, as much as what we apply on the skin matters, the end of the day, at the deep level, your skin is getting nourished by your blood. So, what you're eating is always going to be the most significant, most impactful thing that you can do for your skin. So, in this video, I'm going to just walk you through my approach for this. And again, this is food. Food is always a tricky thing because we all have preferences. And this is just me telling you what I choose to do and how I choose to eat. But ultimately, it is really important that you take the time to also experiment for yourself and see what your own system needs. Now, before I even get into the specifics of the food, the one thing I do want to say is that I don't separate out eating for my skin versus eating for any other part of the body. Because again, that blood flowing through your body is taking care of everything, right? It's taking care of the eyes, taking care of the hair, taking care of your hormones, your ovaries, your everything is being nourished by that blood. So we don't need to stress ourselves out so much that we start trying to say, are there specific foods that are necessary for the skin? The answer is all of them. If it's food, it is all important and helpful and beneficial for your body. You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to make it more complicated. Now, if there are sensitivities, if there's a particular skin condition that is happening, that's a different story, right? You might need to temporarily avoid certain things if there's some sort of inflammatory skin condition. But if we're just talking about day-to-day care, it doesn't need to be, you don't need a special list of foods for skin. If it's food, it's good for you, it's good for your skin. So on that note, I have quite a few notes for myself so I don't forget to tell you guys the important things. So the first thing that I prioritize, and this is going to be incredibly boring, it's whole foods. So I eat more as an omnivore. So I would say from my late 30s to very early to just maybe like 3 years ago or so, I was eating more pescatarian, meaning I was eating mostly plant-based, and then fish was really was my main animal food, and some eggs, right? And I used to eat beef and other things and chicken and all that. And I took like, I would say about 7 years where, like I said, I was doing more pescatarian. And now I'm back to just being an omnivore again, which means I eat, beef, and I eat turkey, and I eat fish. And those are like the three main ones if we're just talking about like meats. But even with eating that, and then of course eggs, but even with eating all of that, I am still highly, highly plant-based. So I probably still do like, I don't know, 80% plant-based. So the amount of, I would say, actual flesh that I eat on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis is ultimately on the low side, I think, compared to a lot of people, if I'm just kind of observing based on like even my own circle of friends. So just based on that. So that's the first thing is whole foods, and I just take an omnivore approach. So, but I still lean more towards plants. Now, getting into how I make choices at the grocery store. So when I walk into a grocery store, I'm thinking in my head, I need to walk out of here with more food and less food products. So I'm not even talking here about like, is it processed, is it not? Because I've realized that really the issue that we often struggle with is that we don't realize that there's actually something else going on. So food products. I want more food. And by food products, I mean something like garlic paste. That's a food product, whereas the food is the garlic. Tomato paste. That's a food product. The tomato is the food, right? So in their whole raw form, that's your food. The moment it starts to get prepared for you and gets packaged, and that's moving into food product. And there are levels to the food product, and that's where it can be minimally processed, highly processed, and all that. Okay, so I'm just going for, need to walk out of here with less food products and a whole lot more foods. That's the general framework when I step into a grocery store. Then the next thing is I read ingredients. And this is a big one and often not very easy, but I really encourage you that you get into the habit of reading ingredients. So let's go back to the example I just mentioned about like the paste, specifically garlic paste, for example. So you might just think, I'm gonna go just pick up any garlic paste, right? Because it tastes like garlic, it'll get the job done. And I don't have to fiddle with peeling raw garlic and getting that smell that gets stuck on my fingers. Like handling raw garlic isn't necessarily fun. Nobody wants to do it. And then either you need a garlic press or you need something else. Like I get it. There's a lot of steps to it. But this is what the distinction that I want to make for you. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly here because what I want to show you is the importance of reading ingredients. So this is me. I just randomly before this went on Target's website and I pulled up this, one of the products they had listed as a garlic paste. So yeah, it's got garlic. Now, if we go down to the ingredients, first ingredient is garlic. Second ingredient though is dextrose. Wow, not the best form of sugar that you want. Ingredient number 3, canola oil. Again, not what you want. So we're just, the first 3 ingredients, which of course ingredients are listed in order of concentration, right? So the higher up they are on the list, the more of that you're getting. So the first 3 ingredients, 2 of them are things I personally don't want. And I think a lot of health professionals will agree also that these are not things we want in our diet. We do not want canola oil. We do not want dextrose. But if you buy something like this for convenience and you're not paying attention to the ingredients, you can end up, right, having a pantry and a kitchen full of things like this that are contributing in their own small ways, contributing ingredients that are just not good for your body. Again, we're thinking about what's flowing through our, what's in our blood and what's in, because that is what's nourishing the skin from the inside out. Your skin is not gonna have nothing good happens with dextrose or with canola oil. So that's an example of what I mean by the importance of reading ingredients. Because like I said, one thing in your kitchen that is this way is okay. 2 things, but then if you have 10 things, if you have 20 things, right? Like the cumulative effect of every product bringing its own thing, it compounds in your system, and that can affect your skin in so many ways because it's going to affect your gut. It's going to affect your liver, right? It's going to affect all these other systems that ultimately are responsible for keeping your skin in good health. So that's a quick and dirty example of why I insist so much on reading ingredients first. The other thing is, let's hop over to oils, right? So oils and fats, those I always look for cold pressed. I stay away from vegetable oil. If it's butter, I make sure that it's grass-fed butter. But again, even with this, I'm reading ingredients. So unless you literally just gave me raw olives, raw anything, the moment it's been made convenient for me, I am always flipping that packaging around and I'm reading the ingredients. So let's hop over to here. I'm on Costco's website. Costco is a place I shop a lot. And there's a whole bunch of olive oils here, right? So sometimes people will make choices maybe based on price. So you're looking at this, it's 3 liters of olive oil for $22, but then there is 2 liters for $30. So you're getting less and paying more over here. Now, why is that? And it's easy to just look at this and be like, well, it's olive oil. I need to just pick this because it is on the cheaper side, right? It says olive oil right here, but then when you read the fine print, and this they put on the front. Sometimes these fine prints are on the back, but here it says it's refined olive oil with 15% extra virgin olive oil. So 85% of this is refined olive oil. Again, you're not getting the good stuff. It's been refined. And what they've done is they just put 15% of the extra virgin, which is the good stuff. So, yes, it's cheap. And yes, you can say you're eating olive oil, but at some point for me, I'm like, why don't I want the good stuff? I want the real thing. I don't want, I'd rather not have any of it at all than to go pay for this sort of, I don't know what this mishmash bastardized version is. Right? I don't want this personally as a consumer, because either way I'm paying for it. And I may not be paying for it when it comes to the money, but my body's going to pay for it down the road because I'm not getting the benefits that I'm expecting. So this is what I mean by reading the ingredients. And if you never would see it in the front, the other thing you'd want to do, I believe they have another image. Oh, yeah, they do have an image of the back of the bottle here. So, and if you zoom in, again, it says refined olive and 15%, right? So the back, even if it was never in the front, the back is where you always want to look. And when it's truly just olive oil, extra virgin, it will say so. And again, cold press is what we're looking for. So these are the things that I pay attention to. This is how I make my decisions when I am shopping. And by the way, for anybody who's watching this here live, please feel free, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I can get to them at the end, or if anything just pops up in the middle that you want to bring up, go ahead and do that. Okay. So that is how I go about choices, is making sure that I really am giving my body the best thing possible. Now, again, nothing is perfect. And we all know that, I think at the end of the day, food companies could still say whatever they want. We all know that every now and then we see reports that say, oh, consumers thought they were buying this thing, but really it was filled with something else. That can happen. But at least let's go into it doing the best we can as far as getting wholesome ingredients. This idea of reading ingredients also extends to, like, when I'm buying spices, herbs, and seasonings, right? So I am checking the ingredients for that, right? If I pick up something that says salt, pink salt, I'm flipping it to the back and I'm making sure it really is just pink salt, because they can put anything else in there and you think you're getting the right thing. I also don't buy any spices that have flow agents. Now, flow agents are additives that typically can go into a lot of spices, especially stuff that comes in powder form, or things that can be converted into powders, I should say, because what happens with powders is they can clump up. And so often companies will put they're called flow agents. And these are additives that are meant to kind of help to prevent that clumping so that it just flows better, right? The way, like when you have any type of spice or seasoning in a bottle and you shake it, it just flows out easily. Well, some will naturally want to clump up, but then they put those flow agents in there. And I'm like, well, again, I don't want anything cutting into what I'm paying for. I'm paying for the whole thing. I'm not paying for an additive. Why would I do that? I read the ingredients to make sure there's no additional dyes or colorings or natural flavors. So even with seasonings, I'm going through that process. And then the ingredients that I mostly avoid, anything that says natural flavors, because they're actually not. Thickeners, so things like carrageenan, which is a big one, guar gum, xanthan gum. Those are all things like you find these gums like in some, let's say, like coconut milks, right? So some companies will put these in there to thicken up the coconut milk, but I will look for the coconut milk that is just 100% coconut and water, because with the gum in there to help it thicken, it does mean that I'm getting less coconut, right? Whereas I want the company that took time, even if I have to pay more, I want the company that took the time to put enough coconut in there for it to be thick on its own naturally, right? So again, as a consumer, I don't mind paying for stuff if I know I'm getting exactly what I expect, right? That's a personal choice. So those are the things that I look for. In terms of fat, so anything that says low fat, skimmed, light, I run away from. So however it was made naturally, if it was made to be naturally high fat, I want it in its natural form. I don't want anything tampered with. Same thing if it was made to be naturally sweet and there's a sugar-free version of it, I run the other way as well. I just want it simple, uncomplicated. And then lastly, when it comes to animal products. So animal products, my main rule here is if it's basically anything that's roaming the earth, it's got to be organic, right? So if I'm getting like byproducts from cows, so cheese, butter, I want it to be organic, 100% grass fed. If it's fish, wild caught, right? So again, things like even turkey or beef, organic. So that's just my rule. Is that if it's on ground with me, on solid ground with me, then preferably I wanted to know that it was fed its own natural diet, that it was allowed to be on pasture. Same thing with eggs. When I'm buying eggs, I'm doing pasture raised eggs for that reason because you know I don't know, like, again, why would I want food from an animal that wasn't treated? Like, why would I want to eat an animal that wasn't treated the best or any type of byproduct of animal food that was not treated optimally? No creature on this planet does well when it's not fed a natural diet. And we human creatures are the evidence of that, all the nonsense that we're surrounded by and how much we struggle because of it, because we are being sold food that is actually not our natural diet, right? And we're struggling because of it. So when I shop, I'm also keeping that in mind for the animal products. Is that what's this animal's environment and nutrition as close to what it should have gotten as possible. Okay, so that's how I approach meat when I step into a grocery store. So the next thing that I want to share with you now has to do with the items that I do make. So there are a couple of things that I just have decided it's not even worth paying for because it's either just so expensive and actually the time it takes me to make it is not that long. So almond milk is one that I always make for myself because it is stupid easy to make. It costs me like next to nothing. I have a recipe, I have a video on my channel where I show you how I make it. So that's one that I don't buy. And because most almond oil has all kinds of stuff thrown into it. And then if you do want to buy one from a clean brand, they charge you the price of caviar for it. And it's just, like I said, it's so easy to make, doesn't make sense to buy. So I don't buy it. Same thing with granola cereal. I love granola. I've learned to make my own. There's lots of amazing bloggers out there. I found one blog that has a really good recipe. Again, it's super easy. So I make it. And then that way I can put whatever I want in the granola anyways, because we all like different things when it comes to granola. And then lastly, when it comes to like cakes, because I have a big sweet tooth. So I am always making or baking something at some point. And it might happen once a week. It might some weeks it happens twice that week. And I prefer to just make my own. So I'm not afraid of sweet treats when it comes to my skin or my health, in the sense that as long as I make it, I know that, again, I will never buy the cheap canola oil or vegetable oil, right? If I'm making it, I will always just put cane sugar and not dextrose, right? Or some other nonsense in it. So as long as I have control over the ingredients and I feel a craving, I go ahead and I satisfy that craving and I'm happy, and then I move on from it. So I don't put those things as a no. I think that what makes even like these sweet treats bad for us, because really when they're made from these big companies, they're choosing ingredients that are cheap and profitable for them, which is a very different mindset that you will have when you're doing it for your own self. Okay. So those are the items that I choose to make for myself. And the other thing I wanted to share with you, oh yes, so the things that I don't drink, so pop, soda, soft drinks, it's probably been almost 20 years since I've had any of those types of things. I just moved on from them at some point. Partially also with moving to the US. So for those, if you're brand new to my channel, you may not know that I was not raised in this country. So was born and raised in Cameroon, and the formulas of a lot of things, even like Coca-Cola, right? You've probably heard this, but people will say it all the time. If you go to another country, you have something like Coca-Cola, and then you have the American version, it's quite different. And when I moved to the US, I made certain choices, and cutting back on sweet drinks was one of them, because I realized that the formulas were just so different, and whatever they do here is just no bueno. So I did not stick with it for very long. I don't do things like Starbucks, not because I'm anti-coffee. I'm not crazy about coffee. But if I was a coffee drinker, I would not do Starbucks, just because it's not coffee at that point. It's just, again, I don't know what that is, but it sells, it's popular. But as far as, our health and our skin, I don't necessarily think it would be a great idea. So yeah, I don't do stuff like that. But really, again, it's not me knocking coffee. It's just I would not buy it in that form. So, and then the last two things that I want to leave you with has to do with eating out. So that's another one that can affect what's going on with our health, what's going on in our bloodstream, what we're feeding our skin. So eating out is also something that I don't do very often. And these things all boil down to personal preference, right? So again, it might seem like there are a lot of rules, but these rules were not born out of, it wasn't born out of me making a choice for my skin, right? I just make decisions based on, this is what a human body needs to thrive. I am very intentional about doing the best I can to keep myself in the best health possible for as long as possible while I'm still in this body breathing, because I know that will benefit my skin, my bones, my everything. Like, so there is no separation. So even with eating out, that decision is under that framework of like, well, I only eat out mostly like maybe once or twice a month. Some months might be more of there's more things going on socially, but generally it may only boil down to that. I might, I'll probably hang out with friends at coffee shops. When I go to coffee shops, I just get like tea, right? So very simple. But yeah, I'm always making, whatever I'm eating, I am making myself. If I buy stuff, like I might buy, I have certain pizzas, I have certain pre-made things that I do like, that I don't make from scratch myself, but I know where to get them. So like Target, for example, has what I consider to be very good frozen pizza. Ingredients for me, they're clean, they work. So if I'm like, I want pizza, I am not in the mood to be making anything myself, I get that. So like there's a list of things, but that would take too long to share with you. And it doesn't really matter whether it's pizza or something. I think it's just once you get into the habit of reading ingredients, then you will find for yourself what makes the most sense. Okay. And that goes for even things like, chips, ice creams. Like I still eat those things, and I just check the ingredients. Now, sometimes I'm traveling or I'm visiting family and I'm staying with someone where I don't have access to all my stuff. So at that point, I just have to relax my rules. And so in the moment, I'll just make a decision in the moment, right? And decide, okay, for the next few days or weeks while I'm staying here, this is what I'm doing, okay? But then once I go home and I come back to my home base, I know that my home base is I'm just going to fall right back into what I normally do, right? So that in a nutshell is how I approach skincare, right? And how I approach choosing foods for nourishing and just taking care of my skin. So I think for me, the big thing is really like that ingredient thing. I think ingredients are such a trap. And I don't think that enough of us take the time to really go through and realize, because you can have a lot of things in your kitchen that just from the front of the packaging, everything looks fine. But when you look at those details and that fine print, you realize that there's so many things there that are maybe just adding toxic load to your body little by little, day after day, year after year. And that toxic load, again, is also going to be reflected on the skin, because the skin is like I said in yesterday's video, is an organ. It is one of our detox pathways, unfortunately. So even when the skin is trying to get rid of gunk, when the body is trying to get rid of gunk, the skin is another legit way, another legit route for all of that to go out, which is where a lot of sometimes a lot of skin problems arise, because maybe our detoxification pathways are not working properly, because, or maybe the body's just overloaded trying to keep up with all the other stuff that's coming into the system. And so the skin sort of bears like the brunt of it. So that's why I think it's really so important to start reading those ingredients and making decisions for yourself in terms of, okay, which ones are you willing to compromise on and which ones are you not, because it's a personal choice. So I've given you a list in this video of the things that I absolutely will not, at least most of the time, compromise on unless, like I said, I'm traveling or something. All right. So I really hope that you found this information helpful and that it gives you some ideas and a little bit of a framework that you can start using for yourself. I know it was a lot of information, but yeah, and for anybody who's here, if you do have any questions around this, please, again, feel free to just drop it in the chat. Of course, as always, the replay for this is going to be up on my channel. So if you came in later in the broadcast, you can go back to the beginning and get all the details. The video will be, like I said, the replay will be on my channel, so you won't miss anything. And I'd love to hear your feedback and your approach, like how you think about skin and the foods that you use when it comes to nourishing your skin and taking care of yourself. So share that with me, even on the replay chat, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. So on that note, thank you for being here, and I will see you on the next live. Bye.